Kate Bennett felt the rocket engines ignite beneath her as the improvised spacecraft lifted off from the Australian desert. Through the small window, she watched Earth fall away as they climbed toward the stars. Beside her, 3 other humans, and 2 Threx allies prepared for what might be the most important mission in galactic history. The orbital sterilization device grew larger as they approached. It was a massive structure, nearly a mile long, bristling with weapons and energy collectors. Kate could see Zephyrian ships patrolling around it, unaware that their most dangerous enemy was approaching in a craft they had never seen before. "Approaching the docking port," said Captain Murphy, the pilot. He was a former Air Force officer who had been freed from the mining camps only weeks ago. "Everyone ready?" Kate checked her equipment one more time. The modified neural disruptor was designed to interface with the sterilization device and reverse its targeting parameters. If it worked, the weapon that was meant to destroy Earth would instead target every Zephyrian ship in the solar system. "Remember," said Crix, one of the Threx allies, "we have maybe 30 minutes before they realize what we are doing. After that, every enemy ship will try to stop us." The docking was successful. Kate's team moved quickly through the alien corridors toward the weapons control center. The defector scientists had provided detailed blueprints, but the reality was more complex than any diagram could show. Emergency alarms began sounding as they reached the central chamber. The Zephyrians had discovered the intrusion. Kate could hear enemy soldiers running through the corridors behind them. "Work fast," Murphy said as he set up defensive positions at the chamber entrance. "We got company coming." Kate connected her device to the alien control system. Numbers and symbols scrolled across the display as her equipment tried to interface with technology from another world. The process was taking longer than expected. Back on Earth, Jake Morrison watched the space battle begin from his command post in Chicago. Threx ships had entered the solar system and were engaging Zephyrian forces in orbit. The aliens were caught off guard by the sudden appearance of their former slaves. "Multiple enemy contacts inbound," Lisa Hayes reported from the communications station. "Looks like the entire Zephyrian fleet is moving to protect the sterilization device." Jake felt helpless as he watched the battle unfold on their salvaged radar screens. Everything depended on Kate's mission succeeding before the alien fleet could overwhelm their Threx allies. General Stone's forces were launching their own attacks on the remaining alien installations on Earth, with most of the enemy fleet in space. Ground-based Zephyrian forces were vulnerable to coordinated strikes by resistance fighters. Amy Rodriguez led her enhanced troops against the Los Angeles Command Center. The bioenhancers that Kate had developed gave her people the edge they needed against physically superior aliens. They moved faster, hit harder, and recovered quicker than normal humans. "Target the shield generators first," Amy ordered as her team approached the alien fortress. "Once those are down, we can use the MP weapons to disable their defenses." The attack succeeded brilliantly. Within an hour, the Los Angeles Command Center was in human hands. Similar victories were reported from New York, London, and Sydney. For the first time in 23 years, humans controlled major cities on their own planet, but the real battle was happening in space. Kate worked frantically to reprogram the sterilization device while her team held off increasing numbers of enemy soldiers. The alien weapon was more complex than anything she had ever studied. "How much more time do you need?" Murphy called out as he fired at approaching Zephyrians. "Almost there," Kate replied. The device was finally responding to her modifications. The targeting parameters were changing from planetary sterilization to fleet engagement mode. Suddenly, the chamber door exploded inward. Zephyrian elite guards in powered armor stormed into the room. These were the Empire's best soldiers, equipped with personal shields and energy weapons. Crix and his Threx partner fought desperately to protect Kate as she completed the final adjustments. The insectoid aliens were brave warriors, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. "Got it!" Kate shouted as the sterilization device accepted her new programming. The massive weapon began to rotate, turning away from Earth toward the Zephyrian fleet. The effect was immediate and devastating. Energy Beams that could have sterilized an entire planet instead focused on enemy ships. The Zephyrian fleet, caught completely by surprise, began taking massive casualties as their own weapon turned against them. The battle turned in humanity's favor within minutes. Threx ships that had been struggling against superior numbers suddenly found themselves supported by the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. Enemy vessels exploded by the dozens as the sterilization device carved through their formations on the weapon platform. Kate's team fought their way back to their ship as the station began to shake apart. The device was overloading, its systems not designed to operate in the new configuration for extended periods. "Move, move, move!" Murphy shouted as they ran through collapsing corridors. Behind them, Zephyrian soldiers were abandoning the station. As it began to break apart, they reached their ship just as the docking bay started to decompress. Captain Murphy fired the engines before the airlock was fully closed. Accelerating away from the dying weapon platform, Kate watched through the window as the sterilization device tore itself apart in a massive explosion. The weapon that had threatened to end all life on Earth was gone forever. The space battle was over. The surviving Zephyrian ships were retreating toward the edge of the solar system. Many of them were broadcasting surrender signals, their crews, no longer willing to fight for an empire that had lied to them about their mission. Jake Morrison received the news in his Chicago command post. Humanity had won. After 23 years of occupation, Earth was free, but the victory was about more than just one planet. The success of the human rebellion had inspired uprisings across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing as dozens of enslaved species followed Earth's example and fought for their freedom. 5 years later, Jake stood in the rebuilt city of New York as president of the new Earth government. The planet had been transformed from an occupied wasteland into the capital of the Free Worlds Alliance. Ships from dozens of species arrived daily, carrying trade goods and refugees from the former empire. Dr. Carol White had established the first human space academy, training a new generation of explorers and defenders. Kate Bennett led the science division, developing new technologies that combined human innovation with alien knowledge. General Stone commanded the Human Defense Corps, helping other worlds achieve their independence. Amy Rodriguez led diplomatic missions to species that were still deciding whether to join the Alliance. The galaxy had learned that freedom was not just a human concept. It was a universal desire that could not be suppressed forever. The species that had once seemed destined for extinction had become the leaders of the greatest liberation movement in galactic history. As human ships spread across the stars, they carried a simple message to every world they visited. No matter how powerful the oppressor, no matter how hopeless the situation might seem, there was always a chance for those who refused to surrender. Humanity had struck back, and the galaxy would never be the same. The message came from deep space 3 days after operation. Rising Sun, Amy Rodriguez was coordinating supply runs between resistance cells when her communications operator picked up the transmission. The signal was not human, but it was not Zephyrian either. "Captain, you need to hear this," the operator said. His name was Tony Chun, a former radio engineer who had kept the resistance networks running for years. "The signal is coming from outside the solar system." Amy put on the headphones and listened. The message was in broken English, clearly translated from another language. The voice was harsh and mechanical, like insects clicking their mandibles together. "Humans of Earth, we are Threx. We fight Zephyrian Empire. Your attacks give us hope. We want to help." Amy felt her heart race. Another alien species was offering to help humanity. After 23 years of fighting alone, they might finally have allies. "Can you respond to this signal?" she asked Tony. "Maybe. If I boost our transmitter power, we might be able to reach them." Within hours, resistance cells around the world were working together to establish contact with the Threx. Jake Morrison coordinated efforts from Chicago while Dr. Paul Bennett analyzed the alien transmission methods. By evening, they had managed to send a reply. The response came quickly. The Threx were an insectoid species that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians 50 years ago. They had been planning a rebellion for decades, waiting for the right moment to strike. Earth's successful attacks had provided the signal they needed. Zephyrian Empire has many enemies, the Threx leader explained through the crackling radio connection. Aquatic nereids forced to change your oceans. Silicon-based quarks made to build ships. Gaseous ethereals used as living computers. All want freedom. Kate Bennett had been studying captured alien equipment when she heard the news. She immediately began analyzing biosamples from different alien species that the Resistance had collected over the years. Her findings were remarkable. "Dad, look at this," she told Paul as she showed him her research. The Zephyrians have been using genetic modification to control other species. They alter brain chemistry to make their subjects more compliant. Paul examined the data. "Are you saying they tried to change human brain chemistry too?" "They tried, but it did not work on us. Human neural patterns are too chaotic and unpredictable. They could not find a way to make us completely obedient." This revelation explained why the Zephyrians had decided to relocate humanity instead of simply enslaving them like other species. Humans were too difficult to control through biological manipulation. General Stone's forces in Australia had been busy since Operation Rising Sun. They had liberated 5 mining operations and rescued over 10,000 prisoners, among the freed. Humans was Dr. Carl White, a former NASA engineer who had been forced to work on alien technology for 5 years. "The Zephyrians have been lying to their own soldiers," Carol told Stone during her debriefing. "Most of them believe they are on a humanitarian mission to help primitive species advance. They do not know about the genocide and slavery." This information gave the Resistance a new strategy. Instead of just fighting alien soldiers, they could try to turn them against their own command structure. Jake Morrison made the decision to broadcast the truth about Zephyrian operations to their military forces. Using captured communication equipment, Resistance cells began transmitting evidence of genocide and slavery to alien units around the world. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Several Zephyrian science teams defected to the human side. These alien scientists provided crucial information about Empire technology and tactics. They also revealed the location of the most dangerous weapon in the Zephyrian arsenal. "They call it the sterilization protocol," one defector explained through a translation device. "If they cannot control a planet, they destroy all life on it. The device is in orbit around your world." Paul Bennett felt sick when he heard this news. The aliens had been planning to kill every living thing on Earth rather than risk losing control of their human subjects. "How long before they activate it?" Jake asked. "Soon," the defector replied. "High Command is angry about your rebellion. They want to make an example of Earth." Kate Bennett immediately began working with the alien defectors to understand the sterilization device. What she learned was both terrifying and hopeful. The weapon was incredibly powerful, but it had one critical weakness. The device uses Earth's own electromagnetic field to generate its destructive power, she explained to the Resistance leadership. "But if we can reverse the polarity of the field at the right moment, the weapon will target Zephyrian ships instead of the planet." "Can we do that?" Amy asked. "With help from our new allies, yes. The Threx have ships with the technology we need. The defector scientists can provide the technical specifications." General Stone's forces had captured enough alien equipment to build a makeshift space launch facility in the Australian desert. Working with freed prisoners who had engineering experience, they began constructing a rocket that could carry Kate Bennett and a small team to the orbital weapon platform. The mission was incredibly dangerous. Even if they reached the device, they would have to modify it while Zephyrian forces tried to stop them. But it was humanity's only chance to prevent total extinction. As preparations began for the orbital mission, Resistance cells around the world reported increasing cooperation from other enslaved species. The Threx rebellion had inspired uprisings on dozens of worlds. The Nereids had stopped terraforming operations in Earth's oceans. The Quarks had sabotaged ship construction facilities. The Zephyrian Empire was facing simultaneous rebellions across multiple star systems. Their forces were stretched thin as they tried to maintain control over increasingly hostile populations. Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of Chicago and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere above them, an alien weapon waited to destroy all life. On Earth, but for the first time in 23 years, humanity was not fighting alone. The galaxy had learned that freedom was possible. Species that had been enslaved for decades were rising up against their oppressors. And at the center of it all, the humans of Earth had shown that even the most powerful empire could be challenged by those who refused to surrender. The final battle was approaching and humanity was ready. The attack began at midnight across 6 continents. Jake Morrison led his team through the ruins of downtown Chicago toward the Zephyrian communication hub. The massive tower rose 300 feet into the air, its alien metal gleaming under. The pale moonlight. 20-3 resistance fighters moved through the shadows behind him. Each carried an EMP weapon designed by Paul Bennett. 3 of them carried the new neural disruptors that could break alien communications. Lisa Hayes coordinated the assault from her position near the tower's base. Alpha team in position, she whispered into her radio. Similar reports came from around the world. Amy Rodriguez's people were approaching the Western Power Station in Los Angeles. Danny Cooper's team surrounded a processing facility in New York. General Stone's forces had emerged from the Australian desert to attack 3 mining operations simultaneously. Jake checked his watch. 30 seconds until the coordinated strike began. He could see alien guards patrolling the base of the communication tower. Their movements were precise and mechanical, following patterns programmed into their neural networks. All teams prepare for rising sun, Jake said into his radio. The countdown reached 0. Paul Bennett activated the first neural disruptor from his hidden position 2 blocks away. The device hummed as it sent its signal toward the alien tower. Within seconds, the effect was visible. The Zephyrian guards stopped their patrol and stood motionless, their neural connections severed. Go, 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 Jake shouted. His team rushed forward as EMP weapons fired at the tower's defensive systems. Alien shields flickered and died as the electromagnetic pulses overloaded their power sources. The massive structure that had controlled Zephyrian communications across North America was suddenly defenseless. Lisa's demolition team reached the tower's base and began placing explosive charges. The aliens inside the building tried to respond, but without their command network, they moved like individuals instead of a coordinated force. Human fighters who had trained in these ruins for years easily outmaneuvered the confused enemy. 3,000 miles away, Amy Rodriguez watched similar chaos unfold at the Los Angeles power station. The neural disruptor had cut communications between alien positions. Enemy forces that should have been working together were isolated and vulnerable. Her enhanced fighters moved faster than normal humans. Kate Bennett's bioenhancers had given them strength and speed that surprised even the physically superior aliens. Peter led a squad through the station's outer defenses while Amy targeted the main power core. Charges set, Peter reported. 30 seconds to detonation. Amy's team fell back as the explosives destroyed the power station's central reactor. Light across the western United States flickered and died as alien installations lost their energy supply. In the darkness, human resistance fighters who knew every street and building began the next phase of their attack. In New York, Danny Cooper's people had captured the processing facility with minimal resistance. The neural disruptors worked perfectly. In urban environments where alien forces were concentrated, enemy soldiers found themselves cut off from their commanders and unable to coordinate any meaningful defense. But the real surprise came from Australia. General Stone's forces had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. They knew the terrain better than any alien ever could. When they emerged from the outback, they brought with them weapons and vehicles that had been hidden since the first days of the occupation. Darwin Mining Station is secured, Stone reported over the radio. We have liberated over 2,000 prisoners. The freed humans included former military personnel who immediately joined the fight. Colonel Sarah Kim had been captured 15 Years ago during the defense of Seoul, now she led a group of ex-soldiers against the alien guards who had imprisoned them. These neural disruptors are incredible, she told Stone as they moved toward the next target. The aliens are completely disorganized without their network. Stone nodded grimly. Paul Bennett's weapons are giving us the edge we need, but the aliens will adapt quickly. We need to hit as many targets as possible while we still have the advantage. Back in Chicago, Jake watched the communication tower collapse in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. The structure that had coordinated alien operations across half a continent was gone. But he knew this was only the beginning. His radio crackled. With reports from resistance cells around the world. The London team had destroyed a research facility. The Tokyo cell had knocked out an orbital defense platform. The Cape Town fighters had captured an alien command post. Operation Rising Sun was succeeding beyond their wildest hopes, but success came with a price. The aliens were already beginning to adapt to the neural disruptors. Enemy commanders were using hardwired communication systems to coordinate counterattacks. Zephyrion reinforcements were moving toward human positions. "Jake, we got a problem," Lisa said as she rejoined his team. Satellite surveillance shows alien ships moving toward major population centers. They are not trying to retake military positions. They are targeting civilians. Jake felt his blood run cold. The aliens were using their oldest tactic. When resistance operations succeeded, they took revenge on innocent people. Thousands of humans who had nothing to do with the rebellion would pay the price for tonight's victories. "Get me Paul Bennett," Jake said into his radio. Paul's voice crackled through the static. "Jake, the neural disruptors are working better than expected. We have reports of successful strikes from every continent. The aliens are targeting civilians in response. We need something that can protect population centers." Paul was quiet. "For a moment, I might have something." Kate has been working on a defensive version of the neural disruptor. Instead of cutting alien communications, it creates interference that makes it hard for them to target specific locations. "How long to deploy it?" "Give me 6 hours. I can modify our remaining devices." Jake looked at the burning remains of the communication tower. Humanity had struck the first blow in their war for freedom. But the real battle was just beginning. The aliens would not give up Earth without a fight around the world. Resistance fighters celebrated their victories while preparing for the counterattack they knew was coming. Operation Rising Sun had succeeded, but the war was far from over. The night sky began to brighten with the approach of dawn. Soon, alien reinforcements would arrive. Soon, the true test of human determination would begin. Dr. Paul Bennett stared at the alien device on his workbench. The metal was unlike anything found on Earth. It seemed to shift color in the lamplight, changing from silver to blue to deep purple. He had been studying Zephyrion technology for 15 years, but this piece was different. The device had come from a crashed scout ship that Jake Morrison's team had found 3 weeks ago. Most of the ship was destroyed, but this one component had survived intact. Paul suspected it was some kind of computer core, but its purpose remained a mystery. He connected his testing equipment to the device. Numbers scrolled across his monitor as the machine analyzed the alien technology. The readings were strange. The device seemed to be drawing power from Earth's magnetic field itself. "Dad, you need to see this." Paul looked up to find his daughter Kate standing in the doorway. She held a tablet computer in her hands, and her face was pale with excitement. "What is it?" he asked. Kate set the tablet on his workbench. The screen showed a complex diagram of neural pathways. "I have been studying the brain tissue from that dead alien we found last month. Look at this." Paul examined the diagram. The neural structure was completely different from human brains. Instead of individual neurons, the alien brain seemed to be made of interconnected clusters that operated as a single unit. "It is like a biological computer network," Kate continued. "Each cluster can communicate with every other cluster instantly. But here is the interesting part. The communication happens through electromagnetic pulses." Paul felt his heart rate increase. "Are you saying their brains operate on electromagnetic frequencies?" "Exactly, and not just their brains. I think their entire command structure works this way. Individual soldiers are connected to their officers. Officers are connected to commanders. Everyone is linked in one giant network. Paul turned back to the alien device on his workbench. Suddenly, the readings on his monitor made sense. This is not just a computer core, it is a communication node. Part of their command network. Kate nodded. And if we can find the right frequency, we can disrupt the entire system. Paul began typing commands into his computer. If Kate was right, this could be the breakthrough they needed. The EMP weapons he had designed could do more than just disable alien technology. They could cut off enemy communications and coordination. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as he ran simulation after simulation, the alien device on. His workbench began to glow brighter as his equipment fed different frequencies into it. Then, at exactly 2,847 megahertz, something unexpected happened. The device shut down completely. Did you see that? Paul asked. Kate was already taking notes. The frequency caused a complete system failure. If this device was connected to other units, the failure would spread through the entire network. Paul felt excitement building in his chest. We need to test this on a larger scale. They worked through the night, modifying one of the EMP weapons to broadcast on the specific frequency that had shut down the alien device. By morning, they had created what Kate called a neural disruptor. Jake Morrison arrived just as they finished the modifications. He looked tired, but his eyes were alert. The resistance leader had been coordinating with cells around the world, preparing for Operation Rising Sun. Paul, I need those weapons ready soon, Jake said. We got word from our spies that the aliens are accelerating their timeline. They want all humans off Earth in 6 weeks, not 3 months. Paul held up the modified device. This might be better than we hoped. Kate discovered that the aliens use biological networks for communication. This weapon can disrupt those networks completely. Jake examined the device. It looked similar to the other EMP weapons, but additional components had been added to control the frequency output. How does it work? Jake asked. Kate stepped forward. The Zephyrians connect their minds through electromagnetic signals. Every soldier is linked to his commander. Every commander is linked to his superiors. If we can break those links, their entire army becomes confused and disorganized. Like cutting the telephone lines during a battle, Jake said. Exactly, but better. Without their neural connections, individual aliens lose access to tactical information, strategic plans, even basic coordination. They become isolated and vulnerable. Paul activated the device. It hummed quietly, emitting a signal that human ears could not detect. We tested it on captured alien equipment. The effect is immediate and spreads through connected systems. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking through the implications. How many of these can you make? With the materials we have here, maybe 5 or 6. But if the other cells can gather the components, we could make dozens. What about range? Kate consulted her notes. Each device should affect alien forces within a 2-mile radius. Multiple devices can be linked together to cover larger areas. Jake smiled for the first time in weeks. This changes everything. If we can disrupt their communications during the attack, they will not be able to coordinate a response. He picked up his radio and began contacting the other resistance cells. Within hours, teams around the world were gathering components for the neural disruptors. Dr. Martinez in Los Angeles found rare earth metals in an abandoned electronics factory. Danny Cooper's people in New York salvaged circuit boards from a crashed alien transport. General Stone's forces in Australia had access to military-grade amplifiers that could boost the signal strength. As reports came in from around the globe, Paul felt something he had not experienced in years: hope. For the first time since the aliens arrived, humanity had a real chance to fight back. The neural disruptors represented more than just a new weapon. They were proof that human ingenuity could overcome alien technology. That determination and creativity could triumph over superior firepower, Paul looked at his daughter Kate as she worked on another device. She had been only 15 when the aliens came. She had grown up in a world of tunnels and hiding places. But she had never stopped learning and growing. The aliens had made a mistake when they left humans alive. They had underestimated the species that had once built cities and traveled to the moon. Now they would learn that humanity was far from defeated. Operation Rising Sun was ready to begin. Amy Rodriguez checked her watch as she walked through the tunnels beneath Los Angeles. The concrete walls around her were covered in cables and pipes that her people had installed over the years. Water dripped from the ceiling in steady drops. The sound echoed through the darkness. Her cell was larger than most. Nearly 200 people lived in the old subway system beneath the city. They had workshops, sleeping areas, and even a small medical station. Dr. Martinez, who used to work at a hospital before the war, took care of anyone who got sick or injured. Amy stopped at a junction where 3 tunnels met. Danny Cooper's voice crackled through her radio from the New York cell. The signal was weak but clear enough to understand. "We got the message from Chicago," Danny said. "Operation Rising Sun, when do we move?" "Soon," Amy replied. "Are your people ready?" "As ready as we can be. We have 40 fighters and enough weapons." "For a small war, what about the empty devices?" Amy looked down the tunnel toward her workshop area. "Paul Bennett sent us the plans yesterday. My tech team is building them now. We should have 15 units ready by tomorrow." The electromagnetic pulse weapons were humanity's best hope. If Paul was right about the alien weaknesses, these devices could shut down entire Zephyrian installations. Amy had seen the test results. The aliens' advanced technology became useless when exposed to the right frequency. She walked deeper into the tunnel system until she reached a large chamber that had once been a train platform. Now it served as the main living area for her people. Families had claimed sections along the walls. Children played quietly in the corners. Everyone knew to stay quiet. Sound carried far underground, and alien patrols sometimes came close to the surface entrances. Kate Bennett sat at a work table near the far wall. She was Paul's daughter, but she had been working independently for years. While her father focused on alien technology, Kate studied their biology. She had found ways to make humans stronger and faster using compounds from crashed alien ships. "How is the project going?" Amy asked as she approached Kate's table. Kate looked up from her microscope. "Better than expected." "The bioenhancers are working. I tested them on myself last week. My reaction time improved by 30%. My strength increased by 20%. The effects last for about 6 hours. Any side effects?" "Some fatigue afterward, but nothing serious. I think we can make enough doses for 50 fighters." Amy nodded. Every advantage would help in the coming battle. The aliens were bigger and stronger than humans. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth had ever built. But humans had something the aliens did not understand. They had the will to fight even when everything seemed hopeless. A young man named Peter ran up to them. He was one of Amy's scouts, barely 20 years old, but already a veteran of dozen raids on alien supply convoys. "Captain Rodriguez," he said. "Breathing hard? We got company topside." 3 Zephyrian patrol ships just landed near the old convention center. "They are setting up some kind of equipment." Amy felt her pulse quicken. The convention center was only 2 miles from their main entrance. If the aliens found them now, before Operation Rising Sun could begin, everything would be lost. "How many aliens?" she asked. "Maybe 30. But they got heavy weapons and those floating guard bots," Amy thought quickly. They could not afford to be discovered, but they also could not let the aliens establish a permanent position so close to their base. She made her decision. "Get 15 of our best fighters ready. We go up tonight and hit them before they can dig in." Kate gathered her equipment. "I will come with you. My people need field testing anyway." "Too dangerous," Amy said. "This is what we train for. Besides, you will need every advantage you can get." Amy knew Kate was right. The bioenhancers could make the difference between success and failure. She turned to Peter. "Tell the teams. To prepare for a surface operation, full combat load. We leave in 2 hours. Word spread quickly through the underground base. People moved with practiced efficiency. Weapons were checked and loaded. Body armor was distributed. The bioenhancers were prepared in small injection devices that could be used quickly during battle. Amy gathered her team leaders around a table covered with maps of the surface. The convention center was marked with a red circle. Escape routes were drawn in blue lines. Everyone studied the plan carefully. Remember, Amy said, we get in fast and hit them hard. Destroy their equipment and get out before reinforcements arrive. This is not about taking prisoners or capturing technology. This is about sending a message. As her fighters prepared for battle, Amy thought about the other cells around the world. Jake Morrison's people in Chicago. Danny Cooper's team in New York. General Stone's forces hiding in the Australian desert. All of them were preparing for the same fight. The aliens had controlled Earth for 23 years. They had taken millions of lives. They had destroyed cities and poisoned the sky, but they had made one mistake. They had left humans alive. And humans, Amy had learned, were very good at learning from their mistakes. She picked up her rifle and checked the ammunition. Tonight, the aliens would learn what it meant to fight an enemy that refused to surrender. Tonight, humanity would begin to strike back. The countdown to Operation Rising Sun had begun. Jake Morrison crawled through the dark tunnel beneath what used to be Chicago. The cold metal walls pressed against his shoulders as he moved forward. Behind him, the sound of boots scraping against concrete told him his team was following. 23. Years had passed since the aliens came and everything changed. The Zephyrians had taken Earth in less than 6 months. Their ships blocked out the sun for weeks. Their weapons turned cities into glass. Most humans died in the first year. The lucky ones died quickly. Jake was not one of the lucky ones. He reached the end of the tunnel and pushed open a heavy door. Light from battery-powered lamps filled the room beyond. This was home now. A place that used to be a subway station had become the heart of the human resistance. 50 people lived here. Men, women, and children who refused to give up. Lisa Hayes looked up from her desk as Jake entered. Maps covered the surface, marked with red circles and black lines. She had been his second in command for 5 years now. Before the war, she had been a teacher. Now she planned attacks on alien supply lines. The scouts are back from the north sector, Lisa said. Her voice was tired but steady. The news is not good. Jake sat down across from her. His body ached from the long crawl through the tunnels. At 45, he felt much older. The war had aged them all. Tell me, he said. The aliens are moving faster than we thought. They have started loading humans onto transport ships. 3 camps have been emptied in the last week. The people are gone. Jake felt his stomach drop. They had heard rumors about the camps. Places where humans were kept like animals before being shipped off-world. No one who left ever came back. How many? He asked. At least 10,000 from what we can tell. Maybe more. The room was quiet except for the hum of generators. Other resistance members worked at tables around them. Some cleaned weapons. Others studied alien technology they had captured. All of them looked tired. Dr. Paul Bennett walked over from his workstation. The old scientist carried a small device in his hands. His white hair was dirty and his clothes were patched, but his eyes still held the spark that had made him famous before the war. Jake, I need to show you something, Paul said. He set the device on the table. It looked like a mix of human electronics and alien metal. I have been working on this for months. I think I found something important. Jake leaned forward. Paul had been trying to understand alien technology since the first ships crashed. Most of his attempts had failed, but he never stopped trying. The aliens use energy shields to protect their buildings and ships, Paul continued. I always wondered how they worked. Now I know. They operate on a specific frequency. If we can match that frequency and reverse it, we can break through their defenses. Lisa looked skeptical. Are you sure about this? Paul nodded. I tested it on a small piece of alien armor. The shield collapsed completely. We could build weapons that used this principle. Jake studied the device. It was roughly the size of his fist and covered in blinking lights. How many could we make? With the materials we have here, maybe 20 or 30. But if the other cells help, we could make hundreds. The Resistance had cells in other cities. Los Angeles, New York, London, Sydney. They communicated through hidden radio networks, but they rarely worked together on large operations. The risk was too great. "There's something else," Lisa said. She pulled out a piece of paper covered in alien symbols. "Our spies in the Central Processing Facility intercepted this. It talks about a final phase. The aliens plan to move all remaining humans off Earth within 3 months." Jake felt cold despite the warm air in the room. 3 months. After that, Earth would be empty of human life. The aliens would have won completely. "We cannot let that happen," he said. Paul picked up his device. "With these weapons, we could hit their main installations. Knock out their power grids. Disable their communications. If we coordinate with the other cells, we could strike everywhere at once." Jake looked around the room. These people had followed him for years. They trusted him to make the right choices. Many of them would die if they tried this. But if they did nothing, they would all die anyway. "Get on the radio," he told Lisa. "Contact all the cells. Tell them we are planning something big. Operation Rising Sun. We hit them everywhere at the same time." Lisa nodded and walked toward the communications station. Paul gathered his equipment and headed back to his work area. Soon, the room buzzed with activity as people prepared for what might be humanity's last battle. Jake sat alone at the table. Staring at the maps, red circles marked alien positions. Black lines showed human tunnels and safe routes. Somewhere above them, alien ships patrolled the skies. Somewhere below them, the last free humans on Earth prepared to fight back. The war was not over yet.